Spider-Man No Way Home. Oh, look, isn't it Marvel trying to make another sequel to Spider-Man Tom Holland version, even though they kind of had a big issue with Spider-Man Far From Home, but it was still a decent film for me. And oh, look at this. This film gained over $1 billion. That was very close to being the top 10 highest grossing films. Okay, in all seriousness, I have seen the previous Tom Holland films of Spider-Man, and yeah, they have mixed results. Homecoming is quite of a very of a likable film. That's very of a bit of a fun comedy film that also has action-packed scenes into it that really works very well with the story. And Far From Home, which is your vacation film, which is kind of generic at times, but still decent. But then came Spider-Man No Way Home, which is also a film that can bring back some characters from the films that had Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, which were like, yeah, you can already tell which Spider-Man films are there in this film. But anywho, on that track, this film is quite a masterpiece, alright. And here's why. But before we get into this film, I would like to say that there are some spoilers in the film. So if you haven't seen the film yet, I would highly recommend not to look at this. So just go to the future very quick so watch this movie and then you can see my review. Well, wait, you still here? You want me to be spoiled? Okay, I'll spoil you then. Anywho, moving on. So it all started with Peter Parker that is now realized that he is Spider-Man that is known to the entire public in the world. And whenever he goes, everyone just knows that he's Spider-Man and just or goes appears out of nowhere thinking that boom, was shocked. But then things get way more interesting when they try to move to another place so they won't be like spotted like every time knowing that they're Spider-Man yada yada yada. yada. But then things okay, I'm just gonna stop at the interesting part. Is when Peter meets up with Doctor Strange and to find a way if there's a spell that can make everyone forget that he's Spider-Man and yeah, but he only keeps like his friends to know that he's Spider-Man because they're his friends. What else do you expect? But when he does the spell, things start to get insane because when Doctor Strange done the spell, things started going into a higher level. Where the Spider-Man villains came back from the previous films, which includes Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. So, but when Peter starts putting Doctor Octopus in the tube, he starts to get much more about him, and throughout the scene, Peter Parker is trying to learn about making his consequences don't affect on others, cause he already knew that he killed Mysterio and doesn't want to do that around innocent people, cause well they're innocent. So what else did you expect, my dude? But then there were some moments in the story where, Spider. Why God stop saying Spiderman? Is when Peter's aunt died, or even like he made a spell with Doctor Strange to like make everyone forget him in order to save the world. Really does make a depressing moment to shatter a tear. But luckily, I never shed a tear, so anywho, we're moving on with the characters. So starting off with the characters, we have Peter, who is the character who is trying to know if he can do the right thing instead of like killing his villains, and make sure that he doesn't do that for innocent people, like I said in the story. Because some scenes with him with Peter does quite give him much development. Either it's the right thing to do or it's the wrong thing to do. It depends on what he thinks. And then there's the rest of the Spider-Man villains that come from the dimensions. There's also like Dr. Octopus, who is obviously the villain who has like octopus arms to like help. It was Dr. Octopus where we get much into his character flaws, who is quite of an interesting character out of the Spider-Man film bunch. And as for like Electro, Sandman, and Lizards, I don't know. They do have a bit of like interesting things about them, but they can be sometimes used as comic reliefs, if you know what I mean. And then there was Green Goblin. The main antagonist is who is also this similar character from like the other like previous Spider-Man films. Because instead of like helping out with the heroes, he decides to do the old villain way. Because that what else do you expect from a Green Goblin character like him? And then when things are starting, when freaking Ned and bloody his Peter's girlfriend trying to like find him, they release the portal onto different dimensions where they meet up with Toby Maguire and Andrew Garfield, which is probably out of nowhere. And I'm quite happy to see these guys again in the Spider-Man film, especially with Toby Maguire since he is the god of Spider-Man after all. Anywho, they don't do much in the story, but in the third act they are quite well developed and do have a bit of comic relief stuff at times. They are, like I said, quite developed and quite good characters in this.
However,
As
with
for
No
the other
Way
characters
Home,
like
the
Doctor
story
Strange,
picks up immediately
Peter's
after.
aunt, Ned, and Peter's girlfriend, they are just not quite used well, but they are still developed in scenes that can make them quite likable. Oh. So as a result, this film is a true masterpiece with a very developed story about Peter, uh, visuals that can be quite very talented, and characters that really do have quite good personalities and quite likable. I would actually recommend this to Spider-Man fans, and also, yes, I know I reviewed this film in 2022 instead of 2021, because now that I think about it, I might want to start reviewing live-action films more. And since you was spoiled throughout this review, don't rage at me that I did warn you about the spoilers, because I did put in that. So don't say I didn't warn you. So yep, this is a definitely must watch and probably the best Spider-Man MCU film. So that's my rating. This is a perfect 10 out of 10 with the Kyle seal of approval. So as a favorite trilogy, I think it's better off not being a trilogy, but just be a film that is truly of a memorable and a very of a box office hit.